For the last 2 years, every time you wanted to use AI, you had to leave the work you're already doing. Open a new tab, go to something like ChatGPT, type in what you're looking for, and then wait for the answer, and then copy the result and paste it back. Then switch to whatever you were originally trying to get done. That whole pattern has just ended, and you probably didn't even notice because Google announced it on the same day that they announced 30 other things. Last week at Google's Cloud Next, Google made Workspace Studio generally available to every business and enterprise plan. The translation here is that if you use Gmail for work, and 13 million paying companies do, you can now build AI agents directly inside the tools you already use. You don't need to know code, you don't need to open up a new tab, and there's no new subscription on top of what you're already paying. So let me break down what's changed, walk you through 3 agents that you can build this weekend in about maybe 2 to 3 minutes each, and then tell you exactly where this thing falls short because I have tested it and there's some stuff that Google isn't shouting about that you need to know before you start. So let's get into it. So on April 22nd of 2026, which was about a week and a half ago now, Google Cloud Next in Las Vegas. And on stage, Google announced two new things that go together. The first is Workspace Studio, which is a place inside Google Workspace where you can build AI agents by literally just describing what you want them to do. No code, no syntax, or developer required. And the second is in the agent inbox, basically an inbox for your AI agents where they can post updates on what they did, what they got stuck on, and what they need from you. Google says that Workspace Studio already has 3.5 million monthly active users, and that was during the early access period. And they automated 170 million tasks in a single month. 3 months earlier, that number was about a tenth of that. So 700% growth before general availability. But here's the part that most people are missing, and this is what I want to spend most of this video on. The story isn't that Google launched another AI tool, the story is that AI is changing addresses. For 2 years, using AI meant going somewhere, opening Claude, opening ChatGPT, switching between apps, and that created attacks on every single workflow. You only used AI for the stuff that was painful enough to justify the context switch. So most of the small stuff, the 30-second test, the 2-minute lookups, the brief drafts, never are getting automated. Now that tax is what's gone now. And the businesses that figure that out first are about to pull pretty far away from the ones that are still copying and pasting between tabs. So here's what we're going to be covering. First, why the location of AI matters more than the model behind it. Second is how Workspace Studio works in about 60 seconds to a couple minutes. And then third, 3 real agents you could build this weekend. Then I'll tell you the 4 things Workspace Studio still can't do because nobody else is going to be honest about these and you need to know before you bet on this. Now, 2 years ago, your AI workflow looked like this. You'd be in Gmail, a client question comes up and you think, all right, I should draft a response with AI. So you all tab to ChatGPT, paste the email in, write a prompt, wait, and then get the draft. And you copy it, and you alt tab back to Gmail, paste it, edit it, and send. That's a 6-step workflow with 2 context switches, and it adds maybe 90 seconds to a task that you do in 40 times a day? That's an hour every single day, just on the friction of moving between tools. Now, picture the same workflow inside something like Workspace Studio. You set up an agent one time, let's say the trigger is a new email from a client, and then the action is classify it, draft a response, and then label it. From then on, every time a client emails you, the draft is waiting for you when you open the message. That's the shift, and it's bigger than it sounds. Now, there is data from the SBE Council's 2026 Small Business Survey that I keep coming back to, and I want to make sure I bring it up. The average small business employee is saving around 5.6 hours a week using AI, but the part that nobody quotes is that managers are saving 7.2 hours and individual contributors save around 3.4. So managers are saving more than double what their teams are. Why? Because managers have the freedom to redesign their own workflows. They use AI because they choose how their work happens. Most independent contributors don't have that freedom. Their work is templated. The tools are picked for them, and switching to ChatGPT every 20 minutes feels like it's not really their place. Now, Workspace Studio collapses that gap. When the agent lives inside Gmail, your team doesn't need permission to use AI. They just open their inbox like they always have, and the AI is already there working. That's not a tool upgrade, that's a category change. So let's look at a quick anatomy lesson before we get into the demos. Every Workspace Studio agent has the same 3 parts. We have a trigger, a brain, and then an action, which is the core anatomy here. So the trigger is what wakes the agent up. A new email lands, a row gets added to a spreadsheet, or a specific time of day arrives. Maybe even a message coming into the chat. Something happens in Workspace, and then your agent gets the signal. Then the brain is Gemini. It reads the data, the email, the row, or whatever, and decides what to do based on rules you wrote in plain English. For example, it could be if the email is a client question, flag it. If it's a newsletter, archive it. Then the action is what the agent does in response. Maybe it's draft a reply, add a row to a sheet, send a chat message, or create a doc, maybe even move a file. So the idea here is we have trigger, brain, and action. That's the whole shape. So let's take a quick peek at this in Gmail itself. When you head over to Gmail, you're going to look up in this top right corner and you're going to be looking for this studio button. Now it's going to be very similar to the Gemini button. If I click the Gemini button, it looks like this. We have our Gemini Alpha. If I go over here and click on Studio, it's a bit different. Now, what we can see is 3 different tabs here. We have the Discover tab, we have the My Flows tab, and then we have the Activity tab. Under the Discover tab, we see opportunities for Gmail. It could be notify me about emails from key people, label emails with action items, or notify me about urgent emails. Obviously, we have an email booster as well. And underneath that, we have the Do More in Studio. These are the templated opportunities that we have right off the bat. Next to that, we have the My Flows button. This is where you would see all of the flows that you are currently using or currently have executing. And next to that, we have the Activity button. Now, this is where you can see any sort of flow that's been run and you can see what they have done. So this is the tab that you're going to go to and refresh and be like, all right, did the flow that I set up actually work? So under My Flows, if I click See Templates, we can take a peek at the platform side of this. So this is the Google Workspace Studio itself. And as you can see, we can do more than just work with emails here. We can work within our Google Chat and we can work with basically anything in the Google Suite, which makes this very powerful if you are a Google Suite user. We have things to boost our email. Like I said, notify me about emails from key people. We also have automations for better meetings, sending me summaries and action items after meetings or getting meeting reminders in chat. And underneath that, we have the tasks and action items. This is where we can auto-create tasks when I'm sending action items, or it could be auto-create tasks when files are added to a folder, or notify me when a file is added to a folder, anything like that. And it keeps on going. Now, the nice thing here, like I said, is that you can simply describe in natural language what you're looking for, and the AI can help you create it. So let's take a quick peek back in our Gmail. All I simply did was I went to the Discover tab and then I clicked on Notify Me about key emails from people. When I click on this, you can then take a peek about the structure. Now, this is very similar to a structure that you would see in other automation tools like Zapier or Make or even N8N, for example. So we can edit our title. We can also see what our trigger was, which is in this case, our starter. So I can simply click this and then I can edit this in real time. So when I get an email from a specific person, I can input this right here. Or if it has these certain words, I can then have that be the trigger, or in this case, the starter. Then underneath that, we have our actions. Well, what happens after we get that email that we want to have the AI take action on? In this case, we have 2 extra steps. We want it to summarize the email, and then we want it to notify me specifically through Google Chat. So if I wanted to edit these more in depth, I would simply click on them. And then from there, we can edit what we're looking for specifically. It could be that the instructions that we're giving this are different depending on what we're looking for from these emails. And then in the last step in Notify Me in Chat, we can see that it uses something very similar to what you would see in Zapier, where we have these little bubbles. These little bubbles are things that you can grab from that previous piece of context. When it grabs that email, it's grabbing multiple different pieces of that email that you can grab then specifically. So if I click this plus button right here, we can add in a variable. So when it grabs the email, from there, if I click this little down arrow, we can then grab something specific. So if I only wanted the email subject, I could only grab the email subject. But if I wanted to grab, for example, the email body, I could do the same thing there as well. And they have a ton of different options here so that you can grab what you specifically need and don't have to have all of the rest baked in there as well. So this allows you to grab the specific things that you need and filter out the things that you don't to keep everything succinct and moving forward. And then once it's to your liking, all you need to simply do is click this turn on button. Or if you want to edit it more in depth, you would click this edit in Workspace Studio here. Now, this is a bit of a different view, but this is the exact same process here over in the Workspace Studio. So this is directly under the My Flows tab. All I simply did was click to the Edit in Workspace Studio, and then it took me to this tab, where then you can do the same exact editing here and even do test runs as well. And if this is something where you wanted to share this workflow with others, you can simply by clicking this button up here and then being able to send the link over to others as well. Now let's walk through 3 different agents that you could build this weekend. Now, none of these took me more than 5 to 10 minutes to set up, and together they could save you up to 4 hours a week easily. Now, the first one here is the inbox triage agent. The idea here is the trigger is any new email landing in Gmail. Gemini then reads it and then asks one question. Who is this from and what kind of email is it? Is it a client question? Is it a vendor pitch? Maybe it's an internal team note? Or is it just noise? And it labels it accordingly. For client questions, it goes even a step further. You can draft a reply based on previous threads with that client. Then it could ping you a Google chat saying, client question from Sarah, draft ready. Then all you need to do is open Gmail in the morning and the replies are already there. You can edit it, send it, and you're done. The second agent is a weekly client report agent. The trigger would be that every Friday at 8 a.m., Gemini pulls last week's data from a Google Sheet that you could keep for each client. This could be hours logged, deliverables shipped, anomalies versus the previous week, etc. It could then write a summary in a fresh Google Doc, format it nicely, attach in a draft email to the client, and then schedule it to send every Monday at 9 a.m. unless you were to cancel it. And then on Friday morning, you can open your inbox and the report is in your drafts. All you need to do is read it for about 90 seconds, fix anything weird, and then hit send. Especially if you're a consultant, an agency owner, or a fractional CFO, or just anyone who sends recurring reports, this one alone could pay for the cost of being on Workspace Standard. The next and last one is the meeting prep agent. The trigger here could be any calendar event about 24 hours before it starts. Gemini could then search your drive for past notes from this person, scan recent emails for context, and then find any docs that they have shared with you. It can then pull the highlights into a brief. We know what we talked about last, what's outstanding, what's likely on their mind, and then it can drop it in a doc named after the meeting and then ping you in a chat. Then, the morning of every meeting, the brief is already waiting. Now, I do want to be honest with you. There are 4 real limitations here that you need to know about before you commit to using these tools. So one is that the triggers are workspace only. If the thing that should kick off your agent lives outside of Google, like a Stripe payment, a HubSpot lead, or a Shopify order, anything like that, Workspace Studio cannot start there. You'll need something like Zapier or Make to bridge in. Now, there are plenty of SMB workflows that live inside of Workspace, so this isn't a deal breaker. But if you're trying to automate the moment a customer pays, that's not where this tool is going to live. 2 is that Gmail action set is pretty shallow. You can draft an email and draft a reply, and that's roughly it on the action side for Gmail. You can't cleanly schedule complex sends, you can't do multi-step send and wait workflows. It's fine for personal triage, but it's not enough yet for a real outbound sales sequence. 3 is that the execution caps. On business standard, you get about 400 flow runs per month, and for 3 personal productivity agents, that's about plenty. For something that fires every time a customer support ticket comes in, you're going to blow through it in a couple days. Then 4, the audit trail is thin. When an agent makes a decision, the logs tell you what it did, not always why. If you're in a regulated industry like finance, healthcare, or legal, your compliance team will want more than this offers today. None of these deal breakers are for an SMB or anything similar doing personal productivity automation, but all of them matter if you're trying to run a serious operation off of it. So know which one that you are doing, and that'll help you make that decision. So here's why this matters more than it might seem. We have 2 case studies that came out of Google's launch event. Karcher, which is the cleaning equipment company, the $1 billion in revenue, and is not a tech firm, which reported a 90% reduction in document drafting time after rolling Workspace Studio out internally. Not 90% on one team, 90% across the document writing function. Then we have a food service distributor. Now, Google didn't name them, but it's one of the big ones, that were able to cut 83% of their internal IT support tickets by automating common requests with no code workflows. The things that employees used to have to file a ticket for are now happening in 30 seconds via an agent. Now, these aren't theoretical efficiency gains. These are operational changes that show up in headcount planning, in budget forecasts, and in what kind of customer experience the company can offer. So here's my read, and I'm going to be direct here. Over the next 12 months, we're going to see a quiet split among businesses. Some will see Workspace Studio go generally available and shrug and keep working the way that they did. And others will spend a Saturday building 3 agents, free up 4 hours a week per person, and use that time to pursue work that was previously off the table. Now, the split won't show up in headlines, but it'll show up in who's still around in 2028. Anyone can install Workspace Studio. The teams that pull ahead are the ones who build the agent the moment they spot the workflow. That's going to be the shift here, and everything else is just a detail. If this was useful, hit subscribe. I'm putting a couple of these out every week, breaking down what's happening in AI for people running real businesses. Also, drop a comment below with the first agent you're going to build, and I'll see you in the next one.